Mr. Cooper, with the enormous amount of development that is on the horizon with regards to Watts, not just housing and mixed-use projects, but also transportation infrastructure, how are you going to ensure that the needs of the community are met and that they have a voice in the process?
Well, first, the transportation issue. I'd like to see a tool for the people who live in Watts to be able to have some type of additional resources for getting on our public transit system. You've got the 105 freeway right here with the green line. You've got a MTA station right here at Wilmington Boulevard. And I want to be able to see the people who live in the Watts community be able to get out of town and get to the places where there are employment opportunities if there isn't one right here in their own backyard. In terms of myself in public transportation, I'd also like to say that if I were elected, I would like to be serving on the MTA board. I would like to also be on the Southern California Association of Governments board, SCAG. I think those are important ways to help serve the people here with transportation needs to be able to make further improvements.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Buscaino, sorry. How will you treat the non-violent offenders who are scheduled to return to the Watts community under AB 109? What kind of support will you provide to the community so that we can accommodate this influx of residents and assimilate them with jobs, education, training?
Definitely an issue and a concern to the community, and as a senior lead officer for LAPD, I've been in the trenches, I know the issues, I've dealt with and planned numerous parole probation task forces throughout this district. Well, Southeast Division has a phenomenal program. It's called the Reentry Program, where when these offenders, low-level offenders, are released early, we have a program in place to catch them, to guide them, to embrace them, and provide a faith-based organization service, provide them with a job skills service, provide them with finance abilities to do their books and to work on their checkbook. This is something that's been instrumental here in Southeast, and I'd like to see that done throughout the city and throughout the district. It's definitely a concern. We just need to be able, if we don't provide those resources, then they go back to their ways of crime. And these are preventive measures that need to be in place once they do get released from county jail.
Thank you very much. We're going to take one more question. Every candidate will get 1 minute to answer this question. And that question is this. There is an incredible amount of development proposed. It's a new paradigm of housing. Federal money's coming to town, and residents are being told that the projects they live in are going to be replaced with new projects. They're being told that they'll have the opportunity perhaps to become a property owner. They're being told they won't be displaced. Yet at the same time, the Department of Housing is a department that's under attack for corruption and or inappropriate behavior. How can we trust them, the housing department, to make sure that those promises come true? And how can we ensure that things move forward and that people benefit as opposed to simply get displaced by the unknown development on the horizon? Your question, sir.
My answer to that is show us the plan. Show us the plan to actually create housing that people can be humanely moved into. Don't just displace people and promise them a house someday and throw them out on the street. That's the last thing we need right now. And the other thing besides show us the plan is let's have a council member that will fight to make sure that nobody's made homeless, nobody's home is taken away without an absolute promise that they're going to not only be housed now and housed humanely, but they're going to end up with something better on down the road. I'm very much for new housing in this community. I'm very much for ownership of homes for people. We need to encourage that. That's great. But the devil is in the details, and we need a council member who's got the guts to stand up and make sure that that happens, and I would certainly do that.
I believe the council member and working with, for example, Maxine Waters, as we're looking at the Jordan Downs project, is putting together advisory groups to look at this issue of housing as it's being changed in Jordan Downs. We have to be an advocate and hold people accountable to make sure that the folks that are being moved out come back. They absolutely have to come back. I think there have been some great ideas relative to home ownership as well. As some get hired on the job, local residents get trained. They don't have the training so they can get the jobs. That our building unions will make sure that they hire people to be apprentices, so when they're done, they'll be journey people. And then also the local businesses get hired to do the goods and services for these big projects. We have to hold people accountable. That means you have to be on the case.
Thank you.
I agree, but Midnight Summer Dream. I've recently, and for the last couple of years, your fears are real. I've been dealing with the family group, and I have 140 people that are currently being displaced as we speak by the same agency that's actually going to build up houses. On papers, it's going to look good. Maybe you'll go as much as 14 years on the 15th year because they're getting a ride by the city of Los Angeles, getting a ride by the state. It's all going to sound good, but unless you know or have somebody on your side that's actually going to be able to watch them, it's going to be the same as 140 people that I'm fighting for right now to be able to stay in their homes, and I'm taking them and holding this as a discrimination act against the city of Los Angeles, against HUD, and I'm fighting them for the people. So that's where you guys are. The fears are real, unfortunately, and if you don't know it, and if you can't see between the cracks, that's where we're at.
Thank you. Mr. Delgado.
Hi, yes. I would do actually. I would work with Preservation Partners. What Preservation Partners does, and their goal is, and I'll read this for you, they will acquire, rehabilitate, and permanently preserve at-risk affordable housing, which originally developed under HUD. And they also, their objective is to provide long-term, secure housing communities, and in partnership with affiliated nonprofit corporations, provide supportive social services focused on the most basic need of very low-income families and seniors. This group here has done projects within this area. They worked on Royal Number 1 and Royal Number 2. How many are familiar with that area, where that's at? They have actually come in and they have did renovations on it. And again, if you have any questions, and if you want to see this document, right now they're focusing on an area in Wilmington, where this group is going to come in, work with the community. They're going to make resource centers, they're going to make employment centers within the communities in order to serve the local communities. So this is a strong partner that we need to continually, aggressively work with in order to restore and to re-renovate all of our projects here within CD15. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Law.
Yes, I actually agree with what Mr. Delgado said. We need to actually work with different organizations that are out there, and we need to, and if one is not out there, we need to actually work together to actually create different programs to make sure that stuff like this does not happen again, and if it happens to someone, fix the problem. Because I personally know several people who actually lost their homes and who was misplaced, and this is definitely something that actually falls in the hands of any elected official for the state of California and for the United States of America. Because this is definitely a problem that could have been prevented, and this is definitely something that actually should be prevented for the future. And so I believe that as an elected official, is this a person's obligation and job to be able to solve the different problems, and that's definitely one of the hugest problems that the city of Los Angeles and the United States of America face today. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Farrell?
If I understand the question properly, on the issue of malfeasance in office, those managers and employees, especially at the managerial level, there are rules that are spelled out in the charter and the administrative code. They need to be fired. From the days of the Bradley administration and the war on poverty, the promises have been made through the housing activities of the city of LA, directly and indirectly, to do specific things. Subsequent mayors and council persons of this district have failed to follow through. I'd just like to see the hands of those of you who are in the neighborhood councils or advisory committees in Watts who have served in some way or another dealing with housing over the past 20 years. See some hands? A couple.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson.
I think there's a lot of potential for benefit as we construct new housing, but I also think we have to really be realistic. When someone knocks on the door and says, I'm here from the government to help you, usually that scares you. We have a couple successful projects in our district, in Dana Strand that was rebuilt, and Normont Terrace, but there are still families that were displaced during that construction. There are still families that were disappointed in what happened. I think working together with the associations in the various communities that need to be rebuilt and expanded, we need to make sure that the communities themselves are agreed to the plans that are going forward, and that we hold accountable the city employees, the feds, and the contractors to make sure the inconvenience to the residents is as short as possible. Nothing is worse than what we've done so much in the city of LA, where we tear something down and it takes 20 years to build something back. We have too many bad examples of that. I think that as a role of a council member, you need to stay on top of this to make sure the deadlines are met and the right people are doing the job.
Thank you. Mr. Huber?
Well, the first thing with the housing authority is I don't want to have an executive director that makes $450,000 a year like Rudy Montiel did. I don't want the housing authority to own their own nonprofits. I think they need to be out of that business. With Jordan Downs, what hasn't been mentioned here today is the housing authority bought an extra 22 acres of land right next door to the project. That provides the opportunity for the housing authority to be able to cycle the project and not displace one person. They can build new housing and the people can move from one place to the next place without any disruption. I think that's a great opportunity. Also, I've had the experience of working on tax credit affordable housing projects, not only in Watts, but throughout the district. And that's a great tool for us to be able to create new affordable housing that's safeguarded against outrageous rents throughout the district. Lastly, we have a $130 million neighborhood stabilization program. Watts is the highest rate of foreclosure area next to the valley, and we need to be able to put people back in those homes, enjoying home ownership with soft seconds and loans to help them rehab the homes. Thank you.
Thank you.
As a police officer, I've dealt with the criminal element at these developments, and quite frankly fed up, and I know we can do better with the ability of weeding out the criminal element first and providing this affordable housing at these developments to folks who need it the most. And with the Jordan Downs project, I'm really pleased with the LAPD and the ability to put together a community-based policing philosophy where you're going to have nearly 35 officers there to deal directly with a community-based policing philosophy and provide that trust, faith, and confidence in the police department. It needs to be safe, first and foremost. And that's something I will continue to champion and support as the next city council member. But the displacement is a concern. And I agree with Pat, there needs to be a plan in place and to share that plan with the community, the neighborhood councils, where it needs to be a transparent process, because that's definitely a concern to me. I've dealt with poverty, I've dealt with the homeless out in the streets, and the last thing I like to see, or last thing I want to see is to have these folks, these poor families, homeless.
Thank you.
If we look at history, we'll realize that the housing developments across the nation have been promised the same thing. In Chicago and Mississippi, that one-for-one replacement, and time again, they have been displaced. They have the plan in place currently as the housing authority, but what we don't realize is that in order to get back into your new unit or your new development, you have to qualify again with a whole nother set of different rules that ultimately disqualify you. So then their opportunity is saying, we gave you an opportunity to come back when you didn't follow the rules. We have to first stop allowing the departments of our city to be as worse as city gangs on the streets, where they come in if you disagree with them. The last time we disagreed with the general manager of the housing authority, they were evicted. That's unacceptable.